focus. We are going to be talking about all the new and exciting books coming out in December. Starting with the hot new fiction titles. So, first of all, S.A. Cosby, they're publishing actually an earlier work of his. From what I understand, it only came out in either ebook or audiobook form. But I was a little confused when I saw this title because originally it wasn't published this year. But they are republishing My Darkest Prayer. This one's kind of a gritty crime novel about a small town deputy. He's navigating corruption and dark secrets after a beloved local pastor is found dead. Robin Cook, the king of the medical thrillers. This is the latest in his series. And in this one, there's two New York City doctors. They are the series' main characters. And they suspect foul play in the death of a friend and colleague. Peter Lovesey has a new one coming out called Showstopper. This is the 21st book in a series, the Detective Peter Diamond mystery series. And in this one, he's investigating a series of misfortunes that have befallen the cast and crew of a hit British TV show. Cormac McCarthy. So after a long hiatus, he has published two books that form a duology. The first book, which was entitled Passenger, came out last month. And next month we have this one, Stella Maris, coming out. The story is told entirely through the transcripts of the main character's psychiatric sessions and touches on a lot of philosophical issues. Red Winter by Mark Cameron. The 22nd Jack Ryan book. This one takes place in the past in 1985 with a young Jack Ryan going back behind the Iron Curtain to investigate a possible Soviet defector. Then you have The Devil's Weapons by Peter Kirsanow. 8th book in the Men at War series set during World War II. In this one, the hero must get a rocket scientist with valuable knowledge out of war-torn Poland.
Here's Becky.
Hello.
3 minutes. Not to call attention or anything.
And then MC Beaton has her latest Agatha Raisin mystery coming out next month. This one involves mysterious disappearances and ancient curses. And then we have Wicked Dreams by Lisa Jackson and Nancy Bush. This is the 5th book in the Colony series. It's a standalone novel, but all these books take place in the same world. This one's kind of a supernatural thriller in which a female private investigator with special gifts has to reluctantly team up with a detective to stop an evil adversary from her past. And with that, we're moving on to nonfiction.
Thank you. The clicker. So the first one we have is Blood, Fire, and Gold, the story of Elizabeth I and Catherine de Medici by Estelle Pranique. One of these queens ruled her kingdom outright. Another clandestinely ruled her nation while using her children to shape the dynasties of Europe. This book explores the relationship between Elizabeth I and Catherine de Medici as they move forward in the medieval world. The next we have is Elizabeth Taylor, The Grit and Glamour of an Icon by Kate Anderson Bauer. This is the very first authorized biography of Hollywood legend Elizabeth Taylor, written using previously unpublished letters, diaries, and interviews. This is sure to give new insight into the life of a very complex, tenacious woman as she rose to fame, battled addiction, and her efforts as an AIDS activist. The next book we have is A Private Spy, The Letters of John Le Carre by John Le Carre and Tim Cromwell. He is arguably one of the most well-known spy authors, and this is a collection of his correspondence being released for the first time, allowing you to gain more more insight into his humor, generosity, and apparently tremendous wit. And they're really excited to release these letters. If you are not familiar with his works, you may have heard of at least a few of them, including Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, Smiley's People, and several other titles. The next is actually something kind of rare for nonfiction. This is The Queens of the Age of Chivalry, England's Medieval Queens by Elson Weir. It is actually one of a series. It is the third installment of her series on England's medieval queens. This book looks at how these medieval queens were able to shape their dynasties despite being seen only as trophies during their time period. This one will focus on, never mind, I'm not gonna try to pronounce that. It's French, and like that. But yes, so it'll be an interesting read. We do have her others upstairs. The next one we have is Raw Deal, Hidden Corruption, Corporate Greed, and the Fight for the Future of Meat by Chloe Sorbo. Thank you. So most Americans have no idea where the meat they purchase at the grocery store comes from. This is a shocking and compelling expose of the U.S.'s meat industry, the devastating failures of the country's food system, and the growing disappointment of alternative meat producers claiming to revolutionize the future of food. After that, we have Weightless, Making Space for My Resilient Body and Soul. This is an insightful, funny, poignant book that is ruthfully honest about the cultural expectations of size, race, and gender, and its goal is to help people be more comfortable with themselves and to move forward into a hopefully brighter future. After that, we have the Jeffersonians, first try, the visionary presidencies of Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe. So, did anybody know this, that before the consecutive two-term administrations of Presidents Clinton, George W. Bush, and Obama, that there had only been one other trio of consecutive two-term administrations for them? Yay, thank you, Kathy. But the only other one in history was Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe. So this book looks at that impact and how they basically, the United States during their time. It should be a really interesting read. A lot of people do not tend to explore Madison and Monroe, and in this context it should be really interesting. And then finally, we have The Tudors in Love, Passion, Tudors in Love, Passion, Politics in the Age of England's Most Famous Dynasty. Sorry, it's a mouthful. This is an in-depth history of the Tudor dynasty and how the rules of romantic courtly love shaped their politics as they ruled England, which is something that is not often discussed in this time period in their political system, so it should also be a very interesting read. So with that, and these are going to be surefire ones that you would want to jump on the holds list sooner rather than later. Sorry, you are still stuck with me. Cool. So our first fiction title is The Vibrant Years. And at 65 years old, our protagonist, Bindu Desni, is living with her ex-daughter-in-law, Allie, and her tech superstar granddaughter, Cooley. Bindu is shocked that she has inherited $1 million. Think of what you would do. And she and her ex-daughter-in-law and granddaughter must now navigate their new dynamic as Cooley deals with the pressures of owning her own tech business. Described as a heartfelt, hilarious novel about three unconventional and ambitious women. The first three likes I have are The Real Miss Tobias, which also focuses on the relationship, multi-general relationship between three ambitious women within a single family, specifically the mothers and daughters-in-law of the Tobias family. While these three women haven't always seen eye to eye, they must learn to navigate a new family dynamic after the incident has occurred in a sharply funny, big-hearted narrative. The other read-alike I have is Remarkably Bright Creatures, with a similar heartfelt tone and unique protagonist. This is the story of Tova Sullivan and her remarkable friendship with Marcellus, a giant Pacific octopus at the aquarium where she works and has worked for the last 30 years after the incident in her life.
Wonderful book.
Yes. I leave the mirror to you.
Okay, Blown by the Same Wind. This is the fourth book in the Cold Storage series, which takes place in the small fishing village of Cold Storage, Alaska. So unlike most mystery series, this series does not have the same characters in each book. It's just anchored by that same setting of Cold Storage, Alaska. In this latest book, it takes place in the summer of 1968 at the height of the Vietnam War. The main character is Ellie. She owns the local bar where strangers keep coming in, most notably a bumbling FBI agent. They keep coming in, they're asking questions about the new guy in town, who apparently is a monk from Kentucky, rumored to be the famous author Thomas Merton. His arrival also happens to coincide with a recent spate of local robberies. Thomas Merton. I had to look him up. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So real life monk author who lived in Kentucky. You have to read and find out. If you want to read an earlier book in the series, here's the Cold Storage self-titled, well not self-titled, but series title, book by Straley. In this one, the main character is a man returning to his hometown of Cold Storage and dealing with all the problems that come with him. And if you're looking for another mystery series with a strong sense of place in a more rural setting, you could try this series by Francine Matthews. This one's Death on Nantucket, and of course it's set in Nantucket.
Makes me want to start smoking limericks.
I know that's Rick.
Please refrain.
I'll restrain myself.
I can't keep my hands out of the nonfiction, can I? No, anywho. This is a historical mystery by Victoria Thompson. She's written several books before, or other books. One that I noticed we have is City of Shadows. This is an informative story about two disparate topics, horse racing and grifting. Our protagonist, Elizabeth, considers herself the Robin Hood of grifters, and she was born in a grifting family, but she only uses her tricks to do good. She has her husband is an attorney who is helping a young woman's family with her dowry. Irene is the young woman, and she has a favorite jockey, Cal, who is hurt very badly in a horse race. So Elizabeth and her father, who's referred to as the old man, find a look-alike who was previously in love with Irene's father. That looks like a woman who was previously in his life. And they cook up a con to solve her problems. Wealthy men, money, and then the family secret comes out, leaving the question, does the end justify the con? Sounds like it could be entertaining. And as Rita likes, of course, I chose Seabiscuit, a familiar story, but Laura Hillenbrand told it beautifully, and there are a lot of similar elements. And also Confident Women, about female grifters and cons, which when I carried this into my office this morning, my coworker Nicole said, "Oh my gosh, that is such a good book." And she had read it and really enjoyed it because there were short stories of each woman's life. So, you know, she said if you were bored, you could skip it. If you had to put it down, it was easy to put down and pick back up again. So I was very glad to have an endorsement on that book that I chose sort of blindly, but we got a confirmation that it's a good one.
So these confident women are confidence women.
Confidence women. Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure that's the name. Yep. Alright. A Dangerous Business is also a historical mystery. It's set in 1851 Monterey, California. Our protagonists are Eliza Ripple and her friend Jean. These are ladies of ill repute, of the night, insert your preferred adjective. Unlike most women in this time period, these ladies of the night have found financial security and things are relatively comfortable for them. However, everything changes as local girls go missing. Inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's detective Dupin, Eliza and Jean have to piece together an array of clues to catch a killer and figure out what's going on in this described as bewitching combination of beauty and danger that will keep you guessing, with large vistas and historical detail. The first read-alike I have is not to be confused with any of the other books that use the word outcasts in their title, because apparently there are a lot of them. It was fun. A novel by Kathleen Kent. It is also set during the 1900s, though on the Gulf Coast. This is an adventure story that focuses on Lucinda Carter, a woman determined to make a new life for herself in a new frontier. That's the first one. The second one is The Best Bad Things. This is a gritty Western mystery set in 1887. Alma is a disgraced Pinkerton detective and has to go undercover to hunt down a shipment of stolen opium.
Another historical one. This is The Dressmakers of Prospect Heights. This book was somehow also released as a story called The Daughters. I don't know if it was between its country of origin and here, but there were a couple different versions of it. This is a story by Kitty Zeldis, who another book we have in the library by her is Not Our Kind. This is a story of Catherine and Bee, who meet in Bee's dressmaking shop in Brooklyn. Brooklyn being the backdrop of the story, 1920s. There's a lot of colorful culture and things about particular to the life of the times woven throughout the story. Bee is protecting her Russian past and her time as a madam in New Orleans. And Bee's ward, Alice, becomes jealous of Bee and Elizabeth, or Catherine's relationship as they grow closer. And she lashes out and parts of Bee's past are revealed. And this leaves all three women trying to decide how their lives are going to fit together going forward, or if they are. Their bonds and their support help one another through immense challenges. So this is a story that is extremely similar to The Seamstress of New Orleans, which is a story, I love the story, and I loved the cover, and when I finally got my hands on the book, I found out who did the cover. The artist is she's a photographer and artist. She's quite brilliant. I'm all over her website all the time, just because it's so pretty. But it too is a story of two women who meet over dressmaking, and one is privileged, one is not. They meet in an orphanage for women, for young women. So elements of these stories are so much alike that I feel a little guilty saying one is different than the other. But if it's half as good as McPhail's, it will be a very good story. And then Tracy Chevalier, her A Single Thread is also a story of women doing needlework and women who have few options, who do needlework to survive, and how that creates bonds and relationships among them, and also with the art that they work on as they do their needlework. That's coming out on the 6th of December, so that'll be an early one.
Before I forget. Later then. All right. The Ingenue, thank you. I don't know why I started with a different word. Ingenue by Rachel Kappa by Rachel is a women's fiction title. When a former piano prodigy, Saskia, returns home to Milwaukee at her mother's unexpected death, she expects to inherit the family estate. However, things get complicated when the estate passes to someone from her past. Described as The Queen's Gambit meets My Dark Vanessa, this tightly plotted story is sure to give you chills as it examines the expectations of talent, the relationship between powerful men and young women, and personal identity. And my read likes, as described, are The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis and My Dark Vanessa by Elizabeth Kate Russell. The Queen's Gambit is the story of Beth Harmon. She is a chess prodigy orphaned at age 8. Chess is one of the ways she escapes the drab surroundings of the orphanage she was sent to. The other are the curious green pills provided to the orphans to calm them. As Beth creates a new life for herself, her past at the orphanage is never far behind in this interesting and thought-provoking story. My Dark Vanessa is a story that explores the psychological dynamics of the relationship between a naive teenager and her magnetic and manipulative teacher in this dark and, as the title would suggest, dark and tightly plotted story. Yeah.
So has anyone read Dark Vanessa? I have not. I wonder if the butterfly issue comes up in the book. That would be now.
in
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah. It's interesting.
The author just knew that Vanessa was as famous as Bart was.
Right.
Or the artist. Or the
Yeah.
artist, right,
Right.
exactly.
Okay. Judas 62 by Charles Cumming. Cumming is a British author of spy fiction, so he's written several spy fiction novels previous to this one. This is the second in his new series, the Box 88 series. For what it's worth, Box 88 is the name of like a black ops outfit. And Lachlan Kite is the series main character. He's a master spy. So in Judas 62, Lachlan Kite, he's now the director of the Box 88 UK outfit, and he's being targeted by an enemy from his past. The story jumps back and forth between his 1993 mission to extract a chemical weapons scientist from post-Soviet Russia, and his current day struggle to evade Russian assassins, which leads him to the city of Dubai. According to the Times Books of the Year, Judas 62 is all you could want from a tense, topical, and intelligent spy thriller. So if you're interested in checking out the first book, that's this one here, Box 88. And also another good read-alike would be Slough House. We had a debate in terms of how to pronounce that word. Slough, apparently, and that's how the Brits pronounce it.
Something can slough off, or there can be something called a slough, which I think, isn't that like a ditch or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
I like sloth. Use what you will.
Be what it may. That word in house is the title.
What kind of house it is.
Like this is, I guess Slough is the name of a town in England too.
In Iowa, slough means like a lake off to the
Yeah,
side.
it has something to do with water.
Right.
Yeah.
It's where I got my amoebas for biology class.
There are no amoebas in this book, but if you're interested in suspenseful spy thrillers, you can try this. This is another series. This one's about a group of washed up MI5 agents trying to redeem themselves.
Then Oakry gives us the last gift of the master artists. He is a Booker Prize winner. His book, the Farm House, the Farm Shed Road, won the Booker. I could put my hands on that. I'm not sure we have it or not. This is. The genre is magical realism, and this is a story that deals with timeless themes of evil, slavery, art, and mortality. And Oakry uses his unique voice to prompt reflections of our past mistakes and prompting us to consider how they're impacting our current day issues. It is the last gift of the master artist is a cautionary tale of absolute power. It is set in Africa, and it is told through the work of the master artist. So he weaves African legend and lore and mythology and current topics throughout the story to tell his story. And as Rita, I brought his Every Leaf a Hallelujah that came out a few years ago, and I also bought as Rita likes, incidentally Booker winners. I didn't do that intentionally, but Damon Galgut wrote The Promise and won the Booker last year. At Night All Blood is Black. David Diop won the International Booker, as translated from French. They both are works of literature that address how a seemingly, not simple, but a seemingly seen as sort of a normal thing, the things that we do, can have tremendous impact even on multiple generations, and certainly on many different people whose lives we touch. So cautionary in the way that we have to think about how our behavior and how what we say and do is perceived and impacts the people around us.
Steve, what is the title of that one?
This one, At Night All Blood is Black.
What is it?
At Night All Blood is Black. It is 145 pages, and it packs a punch in those 145 pages. An excellent, amazingly written book about, I think it's the First World War.
This is the last invitation by Darby Kane. So, the Sophie Foundation is a secret club of powerful women who regularly meet, and over some wine and cheese, they review files on men who have behaved badly and determine which of them needs killing. Jessa Hall is a new member to the group. Initially, she was excited at the prospect of being included in such an exclusive club. Now she's having second thoughts. I don't know why. She turns to a friend whose ex-husband has died mysteriously to take down the foundation in this book. Fellow author Jamie Lynn Hendricks has this to say about it. She says, "The last invitation is packed with all the must-haves for a relentless, intricately woven thriller. A secret society, the past coming to haunt the present, and a surprise villain." So a couple read alikes. First we have The Club by Ellery Lloyd. This is a fairly new book, but for more in the way of suspense, murder, private clubs. This one's about a series of glitzy clubs attended by famous celebrities with a lot of dirty secrets. And Big Little Lies, again, thriller, secrets, all female cast. This one follows three mothers and their involvement in a school riot that leaves one parent dead.
Pirate is a literary fiction title. It is said that we are born into the times that suit us, but what would they say about a girl born during a hurricane? This is the story of Wanda. She's born in a small town on the southeastern coast of Florida during a hurricane, and as the state also struggles with the aftermath of the hurricane and the rise in sea level and devastating changes in weather patterns. It is the saga of her and her family. Described as a meditation on the future we would rather not greet, this narrative is told in 4 parts and has lush prose and vivid details of places forgotten by civilization and being reclaimed by nature. The first read alike I have is a book titled Weather, a novel by Jenny Offel. She's not awful. Just trying to say it that way. This book is the story of Lizzie Benson. She has taken a new job answering letters for the podcast Hell and High Water, though soon she finds herself struggling with the limit of her experience, empathy, and desire as she slips into a more polarized world in this tightly plotted story. And then the other I have, which is a little bit on the darker side, is The Living Sea of Waking Dreams by Richard Flanagan. It has a similar theme of family and a future we would rather not see. It is a story of Anna and her siblings who are fighting to keep their mother alive as she seeks to escape through her hospital window into visions of horror and delight. Yes, so just a smidge. That's all I need.
You're really. Chester Wheeler is a family story by Catherine Ryan Hyde. Takes place in Buffalo, New York in current times. A young man, Lewis, is roped in to caring for his insufferable homophobic neighbor, Chester Wheeler. Chester Wheeler is at the end of his life and Lewis needs money. So he runs errands, he takes care of him, you know, puts up with his crabbiness and, you know, all that stuff, you know, knowing it's not a lifetime assignment. And he assumes all of the aggravations that Mr. Wheeler has to deal out to him. And then the big ask. Will Lewis take Chester to Arizona in his Winnebago so that he may see his ex-wife, who he has not seen in 32 years, one last time? And 1 week, 2,000 miles. How bad can it go? So Long Chester Wheeler is an uplifting novel about how we form bonds with people, and sometimes the last people we'd expect are really the people that we need the most. So it does sound like a heartwarming story. And Rita likes, I brought 2 of Catherine Ryan Hyde's previous stories, Dreaming of Flight and Boy Underground. And then Jeanette was kind enough to share with me, just a few days ago, I believe, the story of Driving Miss Norma, which is a nonfiction. It's a biographical story, but with very much the same premise, except in Miss Norma, she takes off in a Winnebago after a medical diagnosis, and she says, I'm not doing all that, I'm saying yes to life, and she and her son and her daughter-in-law and her dog take off, and this is the story of their trip across the
That was
country.
fun. That was a fun trip.
Did you read it? Yeah. I've not read it, but I really want to.
Life for life, except it's a whole bunch of people and it's fun and
Yeah,
cars.
right, yeah.
Instead of a horse. It's good.
Yeah.
I read both of those real life.
Okay, we got Final Resting Place by Olivia Black. This is the first in a new series, The Record Shop Mysteries. I'm just gonna read a little blurb from the publisher here because I think it does a good job of summing up the tone of this one. When Judy Jessup and her sisters Tansy and Maggie put all their beans in one basket to open up Sip and Spin Records, a record/coffee shop in Cedar River, Texas, they know there could be some scratches on the track, but no one was expecting to find a body deader than disco in the supply closet. So this is most definitely a cozy mystery. It's gonna be light, it's gonna be punny. It revolves around, unintended, a family business in a small town. There's a murder to be solved, there's family hijinks, and even some romance. My 2 read-alikes are also, I think they're both published this year, early this year. First in new cozy mystery series. First, there's Live, Local, and Dead by Nikki Knight. The main character in this one owns a small radio station in Vermont, and in this book, she's getting blamed for the death of a talk show host that she recently fired. And then we have 6 Feet Deep Dish by Mindy Quigley. The main character in this one has just opened a gourmet pizza restaurant in Geneva Bay, Wisconsin. So similar, very similar reads. So the Tatami Galaxy is a book that is the inspiration behind a critically acclaimed anime series. This is translated from the Japanese. Raise your hand if you're a big anime fan. So this was words that have been, that I pulled from reviews that are describing this book. Sharp and funny, wacky, magical, irreverent. It's set in Kyoto, Japan. We have a distraught college student who encounters a self-proclaimed god and is given the opportunity to start this college experience over as a freshman in 4 parallel universes. So each redo kind of revolves around the main character's choice of which student club to be involved with. And he attempts to avoid bad influences and also win the girl. So a couple read-alikes. First, the Midnight Library that you're all probably familiar with. But in this book, a woman travels through a library that contains books about all the different lives that she could have lived. And she has the opportunity to change her life for a new one. And then, this is actually a second book in a series, but the first book we only have in digital format. The first book is called Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This one's Tales from a Cafe, takes place in the same world. There's about 4 people who visit a unique Tokyo cafe that offers patrons a chance to travel back in time.
So, Three-Edged Sword by Jeff Lindsay is a thriller. It is the 3rd installment of the Riley Wolf series. This new book sees Riley Wolf, master thief, in a bit of a high-stakes pickle. A high-ranking member of a rogue government has abducted the only 2 people that Riley cares about, and to set them free, Riley has to do the agent's dirty work. With a gripping, fast-paced story and vivid locations, this book promises to be the perfect escape during the holiday shenanigans. The read-alikes I have are the first 2 in the series. The first one is Just Watch Me. It introduces Riley Wolf and their first adventures. Their first adventures and how they become the master thief that we know and love. The other is Fool Me Twice, and Riley is forced to pull off an impossible crime. It is the only way he can survive to see our third story. So, great distractions during the holiday season up and coming.
The cover makes me want to read it.
It does, really.
It looks fun.
Oh, wow. I believe the title sounds like it's gonna be some deep, dark examination, but you are far closer to correct, based on what I've read here. So this is, I brought the first 2 in the series. This is number 3 in Decluttering Mystery series. The protagonist is Ellen Curtis, who runs a business which she calls Space Woman. She is a professional declutterer. She meets a resistant customer, Cedric, who won't let her in initially. She finally works her way in. He is not cordial. She's not able to establish any rapport with him. He resents her presence, and then one day she finds him dead in his bed. And she calls the police. They think he was poisoned, and they are concerned that Ellen has unwittingly disposed of the evidence. So this impacts her work with all of her other clients, and her relationships with her grown children. And she tries to work through this crazy situation and maintain her business. Are any of you Simon Brett fans? We have several books. And his reputation is pretty solid. The clues are, it says the clues in this story are evenly distributed and cleverly tied up. And one of the other things I read was he could probably write these books in his sleep. So he must be quite accomplished. And the whole cluttered corpse thing sounds like an interesting, the decluttering mystery. I had to do that several times when I worked in adult protective services, and you are never the person they like, ever. Even if there's vermin. Another read alike was Murder at Hotel 1911. That is an Ivy Nichols mystery written by Audrey Keown, which is a similar style to Simon Brett.
Okay, this is the fourth book in the Alaska Wild series, and the main character is a thriller writer named Beth Rivers, who's a newcomer to the town of Benedict, Alaska, having moved there due to a traumatic event in her life. Paige Shelton, the author, has written other mysteries, more in the cozy vein, so this seems to be a step in a, I guess, a little more serious direction in terms of tone. And so in this book, it's springtime in Benedict, Alaska, and it's time for the annual Death Walk, which is where community members search the area for people who may have gotten stuck inside during the winter. This year, the main character, Beth, discovers an old man in dire straits, as well as the body of a friend who has been killed. So she goes to work to find the culprit, putting herself in serious danger doing so. So Thin Ice is the first in the series, and you learn more about that traumatic event in Beth's past and what led her to end up in Benedict, Alaska. If you like the Alaska setting but want something a little more light, you could try Bear Witness by Mark O. Jensen. Also, of course, the book I mentioned earlier, the Cold Storage Alaska, would be right the same thing. Next we have A Death in Tokyo. This is the third book in a series featuring Tokyo police detective Kyoichiro Kaga. Author is very popular in Japan, so I believe this is a translated work.
It is,
Okay.
because I've read.
Yeah, you mentioned him at
I've
the last.
read a couple other of his.
Okay, yeah. So in this particular one, when a patrolman sees a stumbling man collapse under the statue of a mythic beast, he discovers the man has died after having been stabbed in the chest. Later that same night, the victim's wallet is found in the possession of a young man fleeing from police. So the detective investigates and tries to discover why the victim made such an effort to reach the statue, and what the connection is between the victim and the young man found with his wallet. Malice, by the same author, is the first in the series. So have you read this one, Malice? Not sure?
I don't think so. I haven't read that one.
I don't think it's his only series,
Oh,
so you
it
could have
wouldn't
read
matter.
Yeah.
I would have taken it if you had.
This one, a best-selling novelist is found murdered in his home, and Detective Kaga suspects the author's best friend, despite his apparently rock-solid alibi. And then Blue Light Yokohama is the first in another mystery series set in Tokyo, with a detective who has to race against the clock to catch a murderer.
The thing in reading his, is that you have to write the names down and who they are, because it's difficult with the Japanese names. But
Right.
once you figure out the main characters, and you can follow it through. It's a good writer.
Yeah.
His mysteries are well written.
A Light in the Forest is a magical realism title. Vega Jones has escaped an abusive relationship with nothing but her 2-month-old son and the man she grew up in. She decides to head for her vagabond mother's hometown, a small town in Ohio, to safely lie low. With a cast of interesting characters and a unique story, this book will leave you looking for light in unexpected places. And say, it does come with a warning. There are discussions of things that may make some people uncomfortable, specifically domestic violence and that sort of a thing. Which also covers our first read-alike, which is The Book Eaters. It has a similar theme around escaping an abusive relationship and a unique magical premise. The main character is Devin. She is a book eater. She and her people exist by eating books. That is how they gain information. She is a rare book eater woman, and she was raised on fairy tales. However, she is forced to learn that the world is anything but. It is a dark and interesting story. The other read-alike, on a little bit of a lighter note, is The Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. And it also, I'm trying to flip some things. Between the real and imaginary are stories that take flight. So our protagonist, Zoe, discovers as she settles into her new home in a small town similar to that in Ohio, but this one is in South Carolina. Also described as an interesting cast of characters and lighter in tone.
I rarely notice covers, and I just always, you have to do a double take when people comment on them, because I think it's a skill I don't have, I guess, except that pretty dress. This is a thriller coming out in the middle of the month on the 13th of December by Wasim Khan, The Lost Man of Bombay. This is number 3 of 4 in his series. We do not have number 1. This is number 2. He writes a brilliant crime fiction with historical accuracy and likable characters. Persis Wadia is she's India's first police inspector, first female police inspector. Takes place, of course, in Bombay. And she is called upon to investigate the Iceman, which is a white man found frozen in the Himalayan foothills. And who is he? How long was he there? Why was he killed? Is there a killer still in their area? This mystery unfolds against the backdrop of the turbulent post-colonial India. So it is a 1950, just after the end of colonialism. And then for read-alikes, I brought book number 2, The Dying Day, and also Salman Rushdie's. I chose Midnight's Children. Anything by him would be a good companion to help you understand the lore and the history and the culture of India, both pre and post-colonialism. And the next one is Scatterleaves. Scatterlings is also being released in the middle of the month. It is a literary fiction debut by Nosakwetsi Manangahe.
Sure.
How they do?
That's weird.
Okay, this takes place in South Africa.
We should applaud then you're like, oh, you did it
I
right.
don't know. I tried to listen to it on Wikipedia, but I couldn't hear it, so I'm like, yeah. I'll do my best. This is the, I did not know about this, 1927 Immorality Act, which was passed in South Africa prohibiting sex between whites and any other race of people. Or it's Europeans and natives. I mean, it's vocalized in different ways through different sources. But we're going to meet Avram and Elisa. They are already a couple with 2 daughters, mixed race couple. They do have economic privilege, which gives them a little more time once this law comes down. But it is their union becomes a criminal act, the fact that they ever married in the first place. And the devastating acts that they do in response to this pain that they're in reverberates through all of the family's lives. And their souls are scattered in the wake of history. It's a lyrically written and moving story. It sounds to me like it's very interesting. And read-alikes for that were Transcendent Kingdom by Yag Yassi. That was very popular. I don't know if many of you read or not. It was a well-reviewed, very popular book. And then A Burning, which interestingly enough also is in India, even though we've moved to Africa. But it is a young woman puts a social media message out there, and she becomes labeled a terrorist. So her it's political fiction, also set in a place that's in turmoil.
I read, Trevor Noah's autobiography.
I thought about him
Born
too.
Again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it sounds like, yeah,
And his picture cards.
yeah, a good one, yeah.
There's a used copy at St. Vincent's you can pick up.
Oh, is there?
Ask their look right here.
Thanks for the advertisement.
Okay, Secrets Tagged in Blood is a new mystery, third book in the Pentecost and Parker series, which is set in 1940s New York City. Features the successful private detective Lillian Pentecost and her assistant Willow Jean Parker, who is a street-smart circus runaway. In this latest entry, a serial killer is imitating the murders depicted in pulp detective magazines, and the author of those stories turns to Pentecost and Parker for help. Fortune Favors the Dead is the first one in the series, where you'll be introduced to the crime investigating duo as they investigate the murder of a wealthy young widow. And then you might also like the writings of M.C. Beaton. This one, Death of a Green-Eyed Monster, is the latest in her Hamish Macbeth series, which is set in Scotland. And in this book, Hamish has a murder investigation that is interfering with his plans to get married. And All the Dark Places by Terry Parlato. This is a debut thriller. So it's gonna be twisty, suspenseful, atmospheric. It's set in a quiet Massachusetts suburb, and a psychologist is found murdered on the morning after his 40th birthday party. The investigating detective is convinced that the murderer is one of the 6 guests that attended the party the night before, and the psychologist's wife believes she may be targeted next. The narrative alternates between the first-person perspectives of Rita, the investigator, and Molly, the wife. A couple similar reads would be The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. This is another twisty thriller about a girl who's blamed for the death of a friend. It's set in Littleport, Maine. And Under My Skin by Lisa Unger. In this one, a woman tries to unravel the mystery around her husband's murder and the several days afterward that she has no memory of.
Lipstick Bureau. Sure everyone's already guessed what that one's about.
Got a bureau that investigates lip shades.
Yes.
Wonder if they have one for lip gloss.
Good shot.
Yeah.
Good shot.
Chapstick.
Everybody's a comedian.
I'm here always.
The Lipstick Bureau comes out at the end of December on the 27th. It is by Michelle Gable, who also gave us A Paris Apartment and The Bookseller's Secret. This is historical fiction, takes place in 1944 in Rome, and is based on a real-life female spy. The OSS hires this female operative who is bilingual and charges her with crafting fake stories and distributing propaganda to lower the morale of the enemy. Truths are revealed, pasts are questioned, and new love develops. And one step out of line could mean death. So there's going to be a lot of tension.
What's the time frame for that?
Time frame that it takes place in 1944.
Oh. World War II.
World War II, yeah, Ann's favorite thing to read about. Also, in a similar vein, Laura Prescott's The Secrets We Kept. Of course, that was prior, I believe, to World War II. That's the story of Dr. Zhivago, but women, spies, and then, and then The Invisible Woman is also female spies, and that too is World War II. Bake shop mystery.
So, Muffin But the Truth by Ellie Alexander is the latest installment of the Bake Shop Mysteries, and I did promise that I would do this, but do you know the Muffin Man? The one who lives on Drury Lane? Well, she's married to the Muffin Man. The Muffin Man? The Muffin Man! It's from Shrek. I promised I would do it. So yes. This new installment of the Bake Shop Mysteries finds Juliet and her team catering an executive event in Ashland, Oregon, when she discovers one of the executives floating face down in the river. And it is up to her to find out what happened. So the previous, my two read likes include the previous story, although each of these are able to stand alone, it does help to read them together, is Donut Disturb, where in this one, it is Juliet's friend's wedding, and she is trying to make sure everything is perfect. However, her wedding is interrupted when the bassist for the band is found stabbed to death, and Juliet is the only one to figure out what's going on. The other read-alike I have, if you enjoy baked good themed murders, is Murder at the Bake Sale by Lee Hollis. Maya and Sandra are friends. moms and private investigators hired by the students of Portland High to discover who killed their favorite Spanish teacher as they were trying to fundraise for a trip to Spain. So, lots of food fun puns. Do you know the Muffin Man?
Okay. We're entering into the nonfiction section. Beaverland. Subtitle, How One Weird Rodent Made America. So this is an example of some popular nature writing. This author's written some other well-reviewed nonfiction books. She's a Guggenheim Fellow and teaches environmental studies at the College of the Holy Cross. This is from the back. An intimate and revelatory dive into the world of the beaver, the wonderfully weird rodent that has surprisingly shaped American history and may save its ecological future. So the author of this book traces the history of the influence of this animal on North America, and also gives us a look into the contemporary world of fur trapping, fur trading, wildlife management, PETA activists, scientists, etc. She seems to cover a large breadth of topics related to the beaver. A couple read-alikes. First, we have Coyote America by Dan Flores. This is a 5 million year biography of the coyote, detailing how they have survived over the years despite being targeted for extinction. And then also Hawk's Way by Cy Montgomery. This is a new one that I know some of you have read, but it's a celebration of the hawk. Short read with some nice colorful pictures inside as well.
Oh, wait a second. Empire of Ice and Stone. Buddy Levy is the author of this selection, and he has written several nonfiction books. He has a wonderful reputation. Labyrinth of Ice was one, and Conquistador also. In this story, we are 1913, setting is the Arctic, and the last great voyage of the historic age of discovery became known as an audacious and disastrous expedition. The Carl Cook was the ship, it was a wooden ship, became icebound, and the leader Stephenson went himself and 5 members of the crew, left the ship, and embarked on, they were going on a 10-day caribou hunting trip. And not sure why, but anyway, left 23 adults and 2 small children on a 1 square mile out ice floe. And no hope, no leader, no ship. And the captain of the ship, Captain Bartlett, became their leader. He took over and he helped them build shelters so that they could survive the first Arctic night, survive the cold. And then in the morning, he and 1 Inuit hunter left to get help. And this is the story of the caribou hunter and the helper. So there's a contrast in leadership styles that's going to be explored a little bit, as well as the human story that's in here. So I chose the Conquistador as an example of Mr. Levy's writing. And for books like this and about these stories, there are so many, because the Arctic is such a brutal frontier. And if you go to 919.8, you'll just see many, many books. I just happened to grab Commodore Brady's From Fire to Ice. He crossed Antarctica alone, which is, we go from 1913 to contemporary current times, and people are trying to do it alone. I don't know how he fared, I'm not sure. must have done okay, I guess, if you wrote the book, right?
You're right.
And then the next one I have for you is, how far the light reaches. This sounds like a fascinating, presentation. Sabrina Imbler is the, author, and she has, compiled a series of essays, and she profiles a sea creature in each of the essays, and that creature is living in a hostile, remote, difficult environment. And she does octopus mothers who starve to death while they protect their eggs. She talks about the Chinese sturgeon, whose existence has been greatly impacted by pollution and dams built by humans. And the bobbit worm, who is named for Lauren, that's all I know, or Lorena, that's all I know. That's all I know about that creature.
We're not going there.
It was in the synopsis, I didn't pick it up. But I thought I'd share, maybe you'd like a little bit. It has themes of adaptation, survival, sexuality, and caring for each other, and invites us as humans to envision some grander possibilities, maybe. So this sounds like a very entertaining and informing new writer with a unique style. And then as Rita likes, I chose The World is Blue, How Our Fate and the Oceans Are One. And then Creatures of the Deep, which is, Eric Hoyt has plunged into who some of these creatures are. It's a big book, it's an oversized, it has lots and lots of pictures.
You're good. Alright, so this one is The Lion and the Fox, subtitled The Two Rival Spies and the Secret Plot to Build a Confederate Navy, by Alexander Rose. This is the remarkable true story of two rival Civil War spies, Thomas Dudley, who is a resolute Quaker lawyer and abolitionist, and Jane Bullock, who is a devious and cunning rebel spy. Both were dispatched to England and entrusted with a vital mission. One was to help build the Confederate Navy, the other was to stop them. This is an astonishing real-life cat and mouse spy thriller, and is being told for the first time with extensive research and beautiful prose. So my read-alikes include George Washington's Secret Spy War, the making of America's first spy master. It is often overlooked, the story of how George Washington really became America's first proper spy master. He delighted in using and inventing a variety of methods of spycraft during the Revolutionary War. Yeah, there was no honest cop chopping down a cherry tree, he enjoyed the crafty, clandestine things of that part of warfare. The other two read-alikes I have are Lincoln's Spies, Their Secret War to Save a Nation, and Liar, Temptress, Soldier, Spy, four women undercover in the Civil War. Both look at different stories of women and men who worked behind the scenes and their secret battles that are often not spoken of when discussing Civil War history. And I'm sorry you're stuck with me for the rest of the 10. Trying to avoid getting a glare. Hey.
You couldn't find that book because Carol Kelly has it checked out.
I was just gonna say that it was currently checked out. I wasn't gonna point any fingers.
I've renewed it like 3 times.
It's a good
We'll be
book.
back soon, I promise.
It is a very good book, so
It's really good.
yeah. This new one is Pests, How Humans Create Animal Villains. It takes a closer look at urban ecosystems and the animals that we classify as pests. It examines the unnatural histories of the animals humans have labeled as pests and how we have impacted them. It is described as accessibly written, well-researched, and just generally entertaining, and has you reconsidering how you see the creatures around us. My read-alikes include Endless Forms, The Secret World of Wasps, and Buzz, Sting, Bite, Why We Need Insects. Both of these focus instead on fuzzy creatures, on the insects that most of us deem as a problem. And then the other is When Raccoons Fall Through Your Ceiling. Hopefully that has never happened to you. I said that to a joke to one of our coworkers here, and she said that that happened to her mother twice. Twice.
Squirrels and chipmunks.
I've had squirrels. Never a raccoon, though. That would be terrifying. This one is also in a similar vein. It examines how we categorize nature when we cross paths with it and how to coexist with nature.
Buzz Bite Sting is really good too.
Yes.
I like to exist one at a time.
And then finally, our last title today is The White House Plumbers, the 7 weeks that led to Watergate. So this is the true story of the secret unit inside of the Nixon White House that attempted to stop the leaking of the Pentagon Papers, and how that plan led to Watergate and ultimately to Nixon's demise. It is described as a gripping, thorough, thoughtful account of what happened behind closed doors during that strange transitional period of American history. The two read-alikes I have are The Secret Man, the story of Watergate's Deep Throat. It is the story of Deep Throat who for just over 30 years had Americans speculating who he was, and finally was named on May 30th, 2005, when W. Mark Feltz, sorry, trying to get the words out too quickly, family revealed him and helped unravel the Watergate. It's a story about Deep Throat and who he was and how his information helped unravel the Watergate scandal. Sorry, I'm trying to read too many words at once. The other book I have is The Watergate Inside America's Most Infamous Address. This one takes a little bit of a different tact and actually looks at the building itself almost as a biography, not just focusing on the scandal. Of course, that is mentioned in there, but it also looks at the people who lived there, the people who worked there, and what it was like to be in one of America's most infamous addresses. And that is all we have. Thank you for joining us. So please place holds on fun things, and we do have some other programs coming up. Please keep an eye on